Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and it's Sunday the 17th of March, and it's big news for Warhammer the Old World. So in the Warhammer community, they've put up their Sunday preview, and that preview contains the next faction release, as in a proper faction release for Warhammer the Old World. And while there were rumours of dwarves, we did get a preview of Orcs and Goblins not that long ago. And funny old thing, yes, it is the Orcs and Goblins. So let's take a look and see what is actually being released. So we've got the Orc and Goblin Tribes Battalion here. So this is your battalion box, similar to what came out with the Bretonnians and Tomb Kings. The difference being you're not going to get the main rule book and the templates and the dice and that sort of thing. This is now a true battalion box rather than a starter box. I think that's a really good thing. I think a lot of people that are into the old world already will have the main rulebook and stuff like that. You can get it separately anyway. And so going back to just basic battalion boxes is a good thing. So in the battalion box, what do you get? Well, you get a massive box of boys, it says. That's 73 miniatures in all. So that's pretty much in line with what we saw for Bretonnia and the Tomb Kings. So 31 orc boys who can wield spears and shields, choppers and shields, or double choppers. So you've got all your weapon options in there. A single command set. So important to think about there is that you've got single command, which means you're only getting one unit of 40 boys. You're not going to have two units with two different command sets. You've got 40 goblins in there who can all be armed with short bows or spears and shields with enough pieces to build multiple command groups, which is good. So as you can see here, you've got that one unit of 40 boys, but then you can have two different units of the goblins. So a unit of 20 goblins with spears, a unit of 20 goblins with the bows. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of goblins. I prefer night goblins if I'm going to run them, but you do have goblins there. And as we can see in the picture, you do get two orc boar chariots, two new transfer sheets, one for orcs, one for goblins, with 75 and 84 decals respectively, which is really nice. You know, those are new. So for those that don't like to do freehand, and I must say I'm not the best at freehand myself, having a few transfers can go a long way to getting that extra detail. Overall, it's a pretty reasonable battalion box, and it's pretty similar to the others in that it's very much, you know, core stuff. For me personally, while the orc boys are nice, like I say, I prefer running night goblins if I'm running goblins, and I've never been a big fan of chariots outside some niche stuff like in Tomb Kings where you're fielding full units and that sort of stuff. So nice to have, but certainly not one for me personally. Now, next up, Black Orc Big Boss. I mean, oozes Grimgore. Black Orc Big Boss is always been a big favourite of mine. If I can, I will always look to run a Black Orc War Boss / Big Boss. So this one here looks really good. Now this one is Forge World resin, comes on a 30mm base, which means he ranks up nicely with the boys. But overall, yeah, pretty nice looking miniature. He does have his tactical rock, which for those of you seen my videos before, I was a little bit scathing off the Tomb Kings character who came with his the emissary Nekaf, who comes with an enormous tactical rock. Now, where I can, I do like to trim these down because I do think they stick up weirdly within it when they're in a unit. In this particular case, his rock isn't too big. You might just get away with it where having your leader a little bit above the others, not a problem. The emissary Nekaf, he was really, really tall. But this guy, you could probably get away with it, but if you didn't want that, it looks like it's going to be easy enough to trim at least right down to that left foot with just a slightly raised right foot, and that would be absolutely fine. But overall, I think this is a really nice looking miniature. Love the detail on it, and absolutely oozes that whole Black Orc vibe. So very, very cool. And I do like the little aesthetics you've got into some of the pieces here, like that little bit of Bretonian symbol in there. Right, so next up is the Orc War Boss on Wyvern. This is a pretty classic looking Wyvern. First of the returning Orc heroes. So this is a returning one, remastered in Forge World resin, which is better because anyone that's tried to glue metal wings, and I remember doing this on a very old zombie dragon, is not fun. Requires lots of pinning and stuff like that. So the Forge World resin, much easier to do with the wings. So I'm pretty happy with that. But it does say there it's got the plastic dragon wings sprue. So, I mean, plastic is the lightest material. It's the easiest material to work with in terms of wings. So that's good. Should be pretty easy to build this one. Looks okay. I'm not the biggest fan of this type of Wyvern, but it's okay. It's okay. Troll Hag. Now, this is a miniature I really love. I'm not the biggest fan of running trolls overall in my armies, the stupidity, and while there's a lot of RNG in Orc armies as it is, adding more into it on purpose can be a little bit defeatist. However, here, this is just an awesome looking model. Yeah, it's a Behemoth character, magical abilities, got a unique spell lore, hulking miniature, so it's in Forge World resin again, but her in-game prowess, so her rules are in the new Arcane journal, and as it says here, she's a must pick for any troll-centric horde. So I love the miniature. Whether I'm actually going to purchase and run this miniature is a different case, but certainly because I don't tend to favour troll-centric Orc and Goblins, I tend to run lots of sort of Black Orcs, Boys, and Night Goblins, with some Doom Divers and sort of pieces like that, Snotling Pump Wagons and stuff. So I don't tend to go down the troll route, but this is a really good looking miniature. Okay, so Orc and Night Goblin command sets. So what have we got here? Two groups. So we've got Orc and Night Goblin. Okay, yeah. First set of two miniatures is a bulky Orc War Boss with a great weapon and an Orc Big Boss holding a battle standard. That battle standard actually looks really cool. I really like that. So a really nice looking miniature. The Night Goblins there, again, we've got a Night Goblin War Boss on a giant cave squig, a Night Goblin Big Boss with a battle standard, and a Night Goblin Shaman, which is a really good command set. I really like that. Wow. All made of Forge World resin. So the Night Goblin stuff I really like. I think the models look really good. I think the Orc ones look really good as well. And, you know, it's an Orc War Boss and an Orc Big Boss. I mean, you can make them Black Orcs, the great weapon. Not necessarily my favourite choice of weapons at the moment, but still good-looking miniatures if that's the route you're going. But for me, the Night Goblins, awesome. Definitely want to pick those up. Okay, so next up is classic Orcs in plastic. So we've got Orc Bosses and Orc Boys. So the first of these builds two highly customizable Orc leaders. So you've got one mounted on a war boar and the other marching on foot. Now this is great because they are incredibly customizable sets. Options for a banner, paired or single choppers, cavalry spear, shield, great weapon, choices of heads and accessories. So for me, I really like it when you've got big customizable packs like that for leaders. If you're going, particularly if you go down the route of what you see is what you've got, but also just because you can really make a good unique flavour for your miniatures, which I think is always nice. So a good classic kit there, and it's in plastic. So the Orc Boys mob, so the same unit found in the Battalion box, but this time you're getting 31 Orc Boys with a choice of weapons and a set of command options. It's an odd number that, isn't it? 31. You get 40 in the Battalion box, if I remember. Or did I read that wrong? No, you get 31. 31. That's just an odd number. It's just an odd number. Yeah, I don't know why they've gone for 31, but you've got 31 in there. It looks like in the picture they've got 30 with the one missing. So the actual picture shows 30 because that's 5 ranks of 6 files. So that's a 30-man mob. I don't know why they've gone 31. That's a really odd number. Anyway, having an extra boy, there you go. Maybe you can do something with him. But you get choice of weapons, you get command set options as well, and you get the new 75 decal transfer sheet. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with boys. They're going to be a great core option. For me, they're going to definitely be my sort of paired core with Night Goblins. So yeah, Orc boys, I mean, they're going to be bread and butter stuff for this faction. Next up is the classic Orcs in metal. So, 3 classic Orc sets returning in metal: Orc Biggins Command, and Orc Shaman with bone stuff. Now I'm going to start with the Orc Shaman because I think he still looks pretty cool, nice looking miniature, and a good sort of shaman on foot, which will be nice to hide in units. Now the Biggins, I have to say, these have not aged well in my opinion. I appreciate classic looks, and there are some classic looks, and I tend to think Night Goblins age quite well by the nature of them. I think these particular Orcs, I mean, these are supposed to be Orc Biggins, right? And if you look at those, and you're going to put them next to your Orcs, Orc boys, that plastic set above, I have to say, I don't think these have aged particularly well. Personally, and as everything when it comes to aesthetic, it's personal choice, but for me, these just don't do it for me. And if I need Biggins, I'll probably be looking to do something else. Nice, they've got the old paper banner. That's nice from a classic perspective. But yeah, the Biggins don't do it. The Shaman, however, pretty good. Right, classic goblins in plastic and metal. Wow, lots here. For me, as I say, if you look at the Night Goblins, I think the Night Goblins age particularly well. In fact, even a lot of the Goblin stuff ages particularly well here. And I've actually got a few of these already. And the Goblin Wolf Chariot, that's pretty cool. So you've got 7 classic packs of Goblins in metal. So you've got 3 packs of 4 Night Goblin bosses, 3 Night Goblin Shamans, 3 Goblin bosses, 2 Goblin Shamans, and 3 Goblin Nasty Skulkers. Okay, so there you go. There's our Nasty Skulkers, Goblin Shamans, Goblin bosses. So that's Goblin bosses here. Okay, Shamans. Then you've got a couple of ones, Wolf Riders. So you've got 2 Goblin Wolf Rider bosses. The Goblin Wolf Rider bosses are quite cool as well. And I do quite like the idea of Goblin Wolf Riders as some sort of like fast cavalry unit. Not going to be particularly tough, but could be fun. And then you've of course got the Goblin Wolf Chariot. Again, not a huge fan of the chariots, but I do tend to find that the Goblin side of the armies stand up more. I think that the older Orcs tend to look a bit weedy, a bit spindly, compared to sort of the newer Orc style. Whereas the Goblins don't really change in that regard. But you go, and paper banner again. So paper banners, yeah, they can be pretty nice. It does save you quite a bit of time in terms of painting when you've got those paper banners. So what have we got? Classic Orc and Goblin gubbins in metal. Wow, okay. Ooh, quite a lot here. So we've got 7 additional packs of returning classics, again in metal. So that's a pack of 2 common trolls. So yeah, basic trolls. Not a big fan of trolls in the game, but I appreciate the miniatures. 5 Badlands Ogre Bulls. To be honest, I don't really like these. If I was looking for ogres, I would go and look at the new plastic ogres and use those personally. And of course, they'll be plastic as opposed to metal. What else have you got in here? 4 bases worth of snotlings. Don't tend to use snotlings that often, but they're there, which is nice. We've got a Goblin Rock Lobber, which can be good. And Goblin with the Orc Bully. Okay, so you've got the Goblin Rock Lobber with the Orc Bully. You've got a Goblin Bolt Thrower and a Goblin Doom Diver. Now, I would pretty much always take a Doom Diver, just because I think it's one of the coolest concepts for an artillery piece. And of course, it does go with my kind of Night Goblin theme, but the Goblin Rock Lobber and the Bolt Thrower can be useful as well, as can Snotling Pump Wagons. I tend to find Snotling Pump Wagons often can be underrated, but this one, yeah, pretty good. Classic miniatures, I can definitely see useful for the war machines, for those that want trolls as well, and also the Snotling Pump Wagon and Snotlings if that's your thing. The ogres, I'd really go and get the plastic ogres. These older models, when there are other options out there, I think I would go with the newer options. Like I say, some classic models hold up. The Troll Hag, for example. But for me, these ogres, not so much. Okay, so next up, giants. Oh, that's the Bone Grinder. Okay, so what have we got? 2 giants return in Forge World resin. We've got one remastered brute and the other standing as tall as one of the largest miniatures in the old world. So the first giant there, he was made in metal. He now comes in Forge World resin, and he does have 2 different head options. Now he's okay, but the Bone Grinder giant, oh my god, it's just such an awesome model. It's huge. You put him on the table and he definitely feels like a giant. There's no doubt about that. It says he's a towering model with an awesome profile to match. So he is also in the Arcane journal. So to use your Bone Grinder giant or your Troll Hag, you're going to need your Arcane journal. The one thing I don't know is how much, given he's Forge World resin, how big he is. I would expect both him and the Troll Hag to be quite pricey. Quite pricey. I expect him to be very pricey. Be interesting to see. Be interesting to see what the price comes out, but a cool looking model nonetheless. Really like him. Right, so we've got, because this is a proper full release, we've also got our Arcane journal for the Orc and Goblin tribe, which you need obviously to use some of these miniatures, which is good. So all the usual stuff. What does it say? Anything in there? So you've got 2 special characters, 2 armies of infamy, a new spell lore, additional units, which is Troll Hags, Bone Grinder Giants, and Badlands Ogre Bulls, and it's available as an EPUB. So yeah, I mean, you're going to need this if you want any of those sort of more esoteric units. You've got your cards, you've got your dice, if that's your thing. I like my cards, I have to say. And yes, you can print them out of the book and put them on card and all that sort of stuff, but I like my cards. I just find it easy when I'm working around the table and having it out, and it helps me remember. So picking up the cards, a good thing. The dice, I mean, that's just if you want those dice. I've got about 1,000 different dice over the years. Okay. So the card pack contains 36 reference cards, magic weapons, magic armor, talismans, magic standards, and all that usual stuff. And useful rules, the Law of Gork and the Law of Mork. And that's it for the old world. But I have to say, for a faction release, that's pretty sizable. That's pretty sizable. So you've got 1 battalion box, right? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you count these as command packs, but there's more miniatures in there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 17, 18, 24, 25, 26. So you've got 26 units available to buy on release. That's pretty sizable. And I know this is all classic miniatures. So not everything in it is new. In fact, most of it isn't new. But most of this stuff won't have been in stock. They're going to have to have made this, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily always get that. They think just because it's old model that it's easy to do, but you have to have all the tooling reset up and checked and the quality checked, and you're going to have to have built stock. So we'll see how quickly it goes out of stock to see how much they actually have. But overall, that's a pretty sizable release. So to see all this coming out, that's really nice. So everything in the article is available to pre-order. So none of this is waves. So this is a 2-week pre-order window, and everything in the article is going to be available to pre-order from next Saturday, which is really cool. So this is not this. There's obviously going to be more to come. There's lots of stuff missing. Where's the Black Orcs, for example? But there's a lot, I think, in this first wave. A lot to get your teeth into. If you're going to start this faction, there's a lot of basic things in there. You're going to need your boys. Night Goblins are already available, right? So you can already get those. Your artillery pieces and that sort of thing. So there's still some. This is in addition to the miniatures that are currently available on the Age of Sigmar side. So and Night Goblins are one of those things that are still available under shooters and looters, I think they are. But nice to see some of the big Forge World stuff back as well. There you go. Hot news, fresh off the press, came out on the article today from Warhammer Community. Brand new faction entering Warhammer the Old World. That can only be a good thing. And we'll wait and see what the next faction is going to be. And if you think about it, what are we in? We're just through mid-March. This is coming out essentially the beginning of April. So that will be circa 2.5, 3 months from the next one. So if you go April, May, June, probably just before the summer. So around sort of that end of June, beginning of July period, we might well see our next faction for Warhammer the Old World if they stick to this sort of 3-month window for getting factions released, which I don't think is too over-optimistic, which means you'll see another faction before the summer and then another faction, sort of, what's that, August, September, October, sort of that October time frame after the summer, maybe November. So, 2 more factions this year, absolutely doable. And starting to, it's needed, right? It's really needed to get people on board because only so many people like Tomb Kings and Bretonnians. There's probably a lot of people out there that have, coming into Warhammer Fantasy battle style, so the Warhammer the Old World for the first time. They don't have existing collections. Maybe they've come in from Total Warhammer. Maybe they've come in from Age of Sigmar and they like the look of this, but they don't want Tomb Kings or Bretts. So the more factions we get, the more people you get into this game system, and that will only help from longevity and continuation of producing miniatures. So that's a good thing. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. It's free.